Hi, welcome to this on Maths prediction for the AQA Paper 3 Higher Tier Maths GCSE for November 2020. Enjoy! Hi, and welcome to this on Maths prediction for the last paper. So, been a very long journey so far, going through the first two papers. And this is the final one. So you know the drill by now. You can click this link here and it will take you straight through to onmaths.com where you can try this paper online for free. As you know, every time you do it, it gives you a brand new paper with brand new numbers. So you're not just learning answers. In fact, there's some questions that are almost new questions each time. So it's really good for making sure that you get a grade at the start of really hard work. Do your really hard work, do all your revision, and then you can do basically the same paper at the end to see how much you've improved. So it's a really useful tool. And as I say with all our predictions, make sure you do the work. Yes, these are based on historical data from this exam board. Yes, these are pretty accurate, but they're not going to be 100% accurate. So make sure you do the work, whether you go to onmaths.com to revise or mathseffect.co.uk to revise. Wherever you go, make sure you do the work first. Otherwise, I hope you enjoy it and thank you very much. Okay, so we're asked to find the length marked x. So it's a trapezium, so it has one pair of parallel sides. And to work out what the area is, we add together both the bases, which are the two parallel sides. We halve it, and then we times that by the height. Now the height is the thing that connects both the bases at right angles. So I'm going to write all that down. So we're going to do half of x plus 1.7. I'm going to times it by the height, which is 2.7. That'll give us the area. Now we're told what the area is. It says the area is 4.05. So this becomes a solving question. So I'm going to put my lines down on the equals. Now on the left hand side, let's have a think what I can do. Well, I can expand that bracket, so it becomes half x plus, and I can use my calculator here, I'll probably do it in my head, 0.85, and we're going to times that by 2.7, so we're going to expand it again by timesing both of them by 2.7, so 0.5 times 2.7, that's 1.35 x plus 0.85 times 2.7, which is 2.295. We should put the equals in here, because I've not done anything to the right hand side yet. So I'm going to take away the 2.295 from both sides to get the x on its own. So 4.05, take away 2.295, and it gives me 1.755. Let's extend my lines a little bit. And we're going to divide by the 1.35 to get x on its own. So divide by 1.35, and it gives me the answer of 1.3. Now there's different ways of doing that. I could have divided both sides by 2.7 and then times both sides by 2 at the start, and that would have also worked, and then taken away the 1.7. Probably would have been easier, but I thought this might have been easier to show, but it's up to you, as long as you get the answer 1.3. Now I can check that, so I'm going to do 0.5 times brackets 1.3 plus 1.7, close brackets times 2.7, and it gives me the answer of 4.05, so I know it's correct. Okay, so we're asked to find the length of the line AB, and the way of doing this is you work out how far across you go and how far up you go, and by doing that you create a right angle triangle. So we go 2 across here, 2 jumps across, and if you don't know that that was 2, let's just do a different method. So to get this other one, 1, 2, 3 jumps up, or you just know that it goes up to 4, down to 1, 4 take away 1 is 3. So it's a right angle triangle with sides 2 and 3, and we're looking for the third one. Now, the one opposite the right angle is going to be labelled as C. These two, it doesn't matter, I'm going to call that A and that B. We use Pythagoras' formula. So A squared plus B squared equals C squared. And A is 2, so 2 squared plus 3 squared, because B is 3, equals C squared. Let's put our lines in. So it's going to be 4 plus 9 equals C squared. 13 equals C squared. Square root both sides, and let's get my calculator. So square root of 13 is 3.6055 blah 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 equals C. So to two decimal places, it's 3.61. Now be careful, sometimes it will say that it's done on centimetre square grid, so you might have a units attached. If you want to put units but it doesn't say any, you can just write 3.61 units. Okay, there's more than one way to expand and simplify a single bracket. You're essentially doing the same thing, but some of you might want to draw grids or do it in a different way. I always just use smiles and rainbows, so I just create a smile between the 2 and the 3x, and a rainbow between the 2 and the 6, and I put a little time sign there to remind me to times it. Just put a notch through the bracket. That means we're going to times 2 and 3x, and 2 times 3 is 6. And then we've got the x there, and 2 times 6 we're going to times together to make 12. Now we've still got the 4x, so I still need to write that down. Then I'm going to collect like terms. Now the like terms we have is the 6x and the plus 4x. So 6x plus 4x is 10x, and then there's nothing that we can do with the 12, so we just leave that. So it's 10x plus 12. Okay, the next one, there's a double smiles and rainbows. We've got one here, bit old time sign there, and we've got one here. So we'll do the first one first. So 8 times 6x, so we do 8 times 6, which is 48, and then we've got the x. Then we do 8 times positive 2, which is 16, so plus 16. Now that's nice and easy. However, the next one's slightly different. The number outside the brackets is not a 3, it's a minus 3. So when we do minus 3 times positive 4x, we're going to get a negative, because a minus times a positive is a negative. Then we do 3 times 4, which is 12, and then we've got the x as well. Now the rainbow is minus 3 times minus 5. Two minuses times together is a plus. 3 times 5 is 15. Then we look for like terms, so we've got the 48x and the minus 12x, and we've got the plus 16 and the plus 15. So we want to do 48 take away 12, or 48x take away 12x. So if we take away 2 it's 6, if we take away 10 it's 36x. Then we want to do 16 plus 15. Well, 15 plus 15 is 30, so that's going to be 31. So the answer is going to be 36x plus 31. Now the most common mistakes are for that n bit there, this bit here. Sometimes students will write down negative 15. For these types of questions, always make sure that you show your working, show how you know something is something. So the way I would start this, and this is not the only correct answer, is I realise that these two are the same. So I know that 2y minus 50 equals 52. The reason I know that is that they are corresponding angles. Now, some of you might know that as F angles, but make sure you write the word corresponding, because they won't accept any other word. So I can solve this by first of all adding 50 to both sides. So that's 2y equals 102, and then I'm going to halve both sides. So y equals 51. So I know y is 51, so I now know that this angle here is 51 degrees. Now I know that this is 52 degrees, because if you look at this, I'll use a different colour, this angle here and this angle here are Z angles, or alternate angles. Or you can say that this 52 degrees here is equal to this here, which is also 52, because they're vertically opposite angles. So I know that this one here, and I could call it a letter on the diagram, so I could say C. I don't think there's another C, so C equals 52, and show the examiner, right, that's because, well, let's go for alternate angles with the original value. Okay, so we've got three sides, or three angles in a triangle. I've got way too many colours going on here. So to work out x, so x equals, it's going to be 180 minus 51 plus 52. So work out what 51 plus 52 is, and then take away from 180. And the reason is angles in triangle. Okay, so I know that 51 plus 52 is going to be 103, and therefore that's going to be 77 degrees. So my answer is 77 degrees. With best value questions, which this is one of, there's normally multiple ways of doing it. Either you get the price per item, or you get how much of the item you get for 1 pence, or you get them to so that they're the same amount of items and then you compare the prices. Now this one asks for the price per tissue, so that's the way we've got to answer this question. So we're going to have tissues on the left hand side and price, and I'm going to do it in pence because it's normally a lot easier to work out when it's in pence. I'm just going to draw a line down the side. So we're going to start off with the box of 24, and it costs 802 pence. Now to get one tissue, I'm going to divide both sides by 24. So if I divide both sides by 24, I get one tissue. So I do 802 divided by 24, and I get 33.416 recurring. Okay, let's try the next one. So that's one done. In fact, if I draw a line, then I can show that I've done that. Okay, so the next one is 20 tissues, and that costs 689 pence. So this time I'm going to divide both sides by 20, so I know how much one tissue costs. So 689 divided by 20 on the calculator, and I get 34.45 pence. Okay, and the last one, let's draw our line. So the last one's 15 tissues, and it costs 538 pence. So this time I'm going to divide both sides by 15 to work out one tissue. Okay, so 538 divided by 15, and this time I get 35.86 recurring. Okay, so first of all, let's get the price in. So it says rounded to 2 decimal places. Okay, so this first one is 33.42, because that one moves up. The 20 tissue box is 34.45. And the last one is 35.87, because that 6 would round up. So which one is the best value? Well, if you have a look at the 24 tissue box, it's only costing 33 pence, just over 33 pence, whilst the 20 tissue box costs over 34 pence, and the 15 tissue box costs over 35 pence. Well, which one would you rather buy? Well, I'd rather buy the one that the tissues cost the least. So the best value is the 24 soft tissues. Now, in your answer, make sure that you write exactly the same as in the question, so that it's absolutely clear which one that you think is the best value. Now, if you worked the other way, if the question didn't specify how to do it, and you were working out the amount of tissues you get per penny, then obviously it works the other way. You want the biggest number because you want the maximum amount of tissues per penny. So just be a little bit careful of that.
Okay, this question doesn't seem like it gives us very much information, but actually it gives us all we need. We need to know it's a regular polygon, which it says it is. We've got the interior angle of 170. So if I imagine I've got my polygon here, and this is a part of the polygon. Obviously the polygon continues up here and across there. And we know that the exterior angle, so this one here, would be useful. The interior angle here is 170 degrees. So to get the exterior angle, all we do is 180 take away 170, which is 10 degrees. And that's for the exterior angle. So if the exterior angle is 10 degrees, we know all exterior angles add up to 360. So we do 360 divided by 10, because each one is 10 degrees. And I don't need my calculator for that. I know that that's just going to be 36. So there's going to be 36 sides of that. So if you're given an interior angle on a regular polygon, just take it away from 180 degrees to find the exterior angle, and then do 360 divided by the exterior angle to find how many sides the polygon has. Okay, so we have a set of simultaneous equations, and I'm just going to start off by just writing them out to give myself a bit more room, because it's a little bit too small otherwise. So I'm just copying out the question. Now, there's a list of things we need to do for these, and there are different methods. I'm just going to go through the main one. The first thing is I need to get either the x's or the y's the same coefficient. So the number before them needs to be the same, ignoring signs. Now looking at this, and I'm going to label these A and B. Looking at this, if I double A, then the x's would become the same because they both have a coefficient of 4. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to write 2A. So I'm going to double everything in A. So double the 2x to make 4x to make the x's the same. Double the 5 before the y, so that's 10y now. And double the 24 to make 48. Now, next, I need to probably, and it's normally the case that if I write down B again, it just makes things easier. So I'm just going to literally copy down B underneath. Okay, so next I'm going to remind myself that I'm working downwards now. So I just put little circles around these to remind me I'm going downwards. And I need to look at the sign before the letter that I've made the same coefficient. So I'm looking at the x's and I'm looking at the signs before them. If the signs are the same, we are going to subtract. If the signs are different, we're going to add. And it's that simple. Okay. Now the signs are the same because they're both positive, so we are going to be subtracting. So a minus there, a minus there, and a minus there. Okay, let's start. 4x take away 4x is nothing, which is good because it needs to be nothing. 10y minus 3y. Now 2 minuses make a plus, so that's 10y plus 3y, which would be 13y. And we've got 48 plus, because the 2 minuses make a plus 4, which is going to be 52. I'm going to put my lines in. Okay, next I need to do 52 divided by 13. And we're going to do both of these divided by 13. So we've got y equals, I think it's 4. So 4 times 13 is 52. So yeah, y equals 4. Then I'm going to pick one of the equations from the question and I'm going to substitute the 4 in. I'm just going to pick the top one. So 2x plus 5 times 4, because we know that y is 4, equals 24. And again, put my lines in. So it's 2x plus 20 equals 24. Take away 20 from both sides. 2x equals 4. Divide both sides by 2. Extend my lines a little bit. And x equals 2. Now if you've got time in the exam, you can check that that's right by using the second equation. So 4 times 2 is 8. 3 times 4 is 12, and 8 take away 12 is minus 4, so we know it's correct. So x is 2 and y is 4. Okay, so question A is about reverse percentages. So in 2014 and 2015, well, let's have a look. So the sales went down between the two. So if we start off with 100% and they went down 12%, what we're left with? Well, we're left with 88%. Now, as a multiplier, and this is the best way of doing this, 88% divided by 100, make it a decimal, is 0.88. Now that number, 0.88, is what we times the 2014 sales to get 2015. But in this question, we're given the 2015 sales, so we're given this one here. So we want to work backwards. So what we want to do is I'll get my calculator, 7,359 divided by 0.88, and that gives me £8,362.50. You've got to ask yourself, well, is that reasonable? Well, they went down by 12%, so it's natural that they would go from a number around just over 8,000 to a number that's just over 7,000. So I'm going to write the answer, £8,362.50. Okay, and the next question says that the sales went up in 2016, or they have a target to get their sales up in 2016. What's the percentage increase? Now, percentage increase or percentage decrease, it's the same formula, is change over original times 100. So the change, well, that's going to be 12272, take away the 2015 sales, so that's that one there, 7359. So they're looking for it to change by 4,913. The original was at 7,359, and we need to times by 100. So I'm going to divide that by 7,359, times it by 100. And that gives me 66.7617, blah, blah, blah. So that's to the nearest percent, so that's going to be 67%. Okay, so I'm asked to complete the Venn diagram, and the E at the top I like to think stands for everything. So all of those numbers need to fit somewhere in this Venn diagram. And we're going to put the square numbers on the left and the odd numbers on the right. Now, there's different methods of doing this. What I like to do with this type of question is just do it one at a time. So we're going to start off with the 16. Now, 16 is a square number, but it's not odd. So I'm going to leave that here. 75. Now 75 is not a square number, but it is odd. So I'm going to put that there. Now 1 is a square number and it's odd, so that's going to go in the middle. 4 is a square number, but it's not odd. 28. Now 28 is not a square number and it's not odd, so that's going to go out here. 9 is a square number and it's odd, that's going to go there. 93 is not a square number, but it is odd. And 2 is not a square number or odd, so that's going to go on the outside here. And I like to just add them up, find out how many numbers we've got in our Venn diagram. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And find out how many numbers we should have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we haven't missed any, because it's quite easy with this type of question to miss a number out. Whenever we see a 3D shape in a question, you've got to ask yourself, is the question asking for a volume or a surface area? And that should be the first question that goes into your mind. Yes, it might be asking for something else, but those are the main two. We're looking at this, we're filling the swimming pool with water, so it's going to be a volume question. Now, way of approaching this is figure out what the shape is. Well, the shape is a trapezium-based prism. So we've got to first of all work out what the area of the trapezium is. So I'm going to draw the trapezium out first. And that height is going to be 2.7 that side, 5.3 that side, and 25 across. And I'll leave off meters because I know they're all in meters. But do check they are all in meters when you do this. So we've got to first of all work out the area. Now the area of a trapezium is half A plus B h. Now, A and B are always the two parallel sides, and then the height is the one that connects them at right angles. So the height is going to be 25 there. And all you're doing is working out the average of the two bases, the 2.7 and the 5.3. We're going to times that by 25. Okay, so we'll crack our calculator out. 2.7. Some of you will probably see this straight away. So the first bit comes out as 4, because halfway between 2.7 and 5.3 is 4. And then times 25 is going to be 100. So the area is 100 meters squared. Now, for a prism, so volume, all you need to do is work out the area of the cross section, which is this bit here, the bit we just worked out, and then times it by how 3D it is. I think they call that the length officially, 15 meters. So the volume is going to be 100 meters squared times 15, which is going to be 1,500 meters cubed. So that's what the volume is, and it says the machine transports the water at a rate of 20 meters cubed per minute. So in 1 minute it's going to be 20, in 2 minutes 40. The other way of working this out, or the other way of thinking about this, is how many 20s are there in 1,500? So we can say time equals, so this is how much it's got to fill, and this is how much it does per minute. So on the calculator, 1,500 divided by 20, which equals 75 minutes. So it's going to take 75 minutes to fill the pool. In this question we're asked to compare two banks, and normally when I'm asked to compare something I just put a line down the middle of the working out, and I put one of them on the left hand side and one of them on the right hand side, and as long as it's identifiable which one is on the left and which one's on the right, you don't need to necessarily put the whole name down, but you can do. So I'm going to start with a super bank. It says we have 2.3% for the first year and 1.8% for all other years, and we're doing this for 2 years at £300. So first of all I want to work out what the multiplier is. Since this is the calculator paper, we use the multiplier method. So we start off with 100% always, and compound interest means we're gaining money, so we're going to go up by 2.3%, so that means we'll have 102.3%. So as a multiplier, what we do is we just divide that percentage by 100 to get it as a decimal into what we call a multiplier, 1.023. So if I times 300 by that, that will tell me what we have after year 1. So let's do that on the calculator. 300 times 1.023. And you might need to press S to D. And that is £306.90. Okay, so that's year 1, and we might as well just write year 1 somewhere. Okay, so year 2, we've got that £306.90, and we need to work out the multiplier for 1.8. So I could go through the same method as before, but actually when you start using multipliers you realise how to just go straight there. So it's going to be 1.018. But you could do 100 plus 1.8 is 101.8, and then divide that by 100. And what's that going to be? So that equals came out a bit wrong. So what's that going to be? So 306 and times 1.018. And that says it's £312. And I'm going to round this to 42. I'm going to round it to the nearest penny. Okay, so that is super bank. That's how much we'd get. Now, the great bank's a bit easier because it's just going to stay at 2.2. So let's work out as a multiplier. 100% plus 2.2% equals 102.2%. And then as a multiplier, that is 1.022 by dividing it by 100. So we're going to times that £300 by 1.022. So 300 times 1.022, and I get £306.60. Then I'm going to times that again by 1.022. So times 1.022, and this time I get 313.34. Ooh, actually, that would be 5 if I round it to the nearest penny. Okay, so it says, which account will give her the most money? Well, looking at that, it's going to be the Superbank. And when you're writing down an answer, make sure you write down the full name. Oh, it's not going to be Superbank, it's going to be the Great Bank. Look at that. So Great Bank Inc. And it says by how much, so I'm going to get that by how much. Let's show the examiner what I'm doing. So I'm going to do 313.35, take away 312.42. So 313.35, take away 312.42. And I get the answer of 93p, so £0.93. Now, if you hadn't have rounded both of those, you might get a slightly different answer, and actually, technically, you shouldn't have rounded them until you got the answer. But on a question like this, where you're rounding it to the actual money she would get, they wouldn't pay her half a penny, then either answer would be correct. And in this bit here, you could have done all of this just as one bit. You could have just written 300 times 1.022 times 1.022, or times 1.022 squared. That would be absolutely fine, because you'll get the same answer. Okay, so we're asked to solve this inequality, and the difference is that there are 3 parts to it. And we solve it in the same way as an equation. However, instead of just having one set of lines, we're going to have 2 sets of lines, and whatever we do, we've got to do to all 3 sides. So looking in the middle, we need that middle to be x, so we've got 3 timesing by the x, and we've got to take away 5. So we've got to deal with that take away 5 first, and we're going to add 5 to all 3 sides. So we're going to end up with 21 here, still got 3x there, and we're going to have 30 there. Now it's a 3x, so we're going to divide all 3 sides by 3 to get x on its own. So that's going to be 7, x, and 10. So my answer will be 7 is less than or equal to x, which is less than 10. Okay, so for this question we need to work out the length of the arc, which is around here, and then we need to work out what this and this are. So we're going to do arc first. I'm going to show the examiner that I'm doing the arc first. Now the distance of the arc is the total circumference of the circle times by the fraction of the circle we've got. So you want to work out what the fraction is of the circle and times it by the circumference of the circle. So to work out the fraction of the circle we've got, well, we've got 146 degrees, and there are 360 degrees in total in a circle. The formula for the circumference of the total circle is pi d, or 2 pi r. Well, here we've got a radius because it's halfway across the circle. If you imagine the whole circle looks something like that, then the 37 is the radius. So we need to first of all double the radius to get the diameter, and so we're going to do pi times 74, which is twice 37. Okay, so we type that all into our calculator, so I press the fraction button, 146 over 360 times pi times 74. And it gives me in terms of pi. I don't need it in terms of pi, I just need it as a decimal. So 94.2826 blah blah blah. Now that's for the arc length, but we also want to know what this distance here is. Well, we've already got that one. And what this distance here is. Well, they are both radiuses, or radii we call it. So that's also going to be 37 meters. So to work out the perimeter, I'm just going to get that 94.2826 blah blah blah, and I'm going to keep it in my calculator, and I'm going to add 37 and add another lot of 37. So add 37, add 37, and that gives me 168.2826 blah blah blah. Once it's two decimal places, so line goes down here, and we've got 168.28. Now just be careful that you add on the extra bit. When it asks you for a perimeter, just make sure you've gone the total distance around the shape. Put a dot and just draw with your finger around the shape to make sure you've got all the distances. Okay, so to do this question, I'm going to start off with a number line, and I'm going to put the number given to us in the question in the middle, so 89.6. Now it says it's to the nearest tenth of a second, so what I want to do on the left hand side is put the next number down. So what could it have rounded to if it was slightly less? Well, the next one down would have been 89.5, and the next one up on the other side would have been 89.7. Now to find the bounds, we just find the halfway points, and this left hand one will be the lower bound, the right hand one will be the upper bound. So that's going to be 89.55 and 89.65. Now it says it wants it as an error interval and use t for the time. So we put t in the middle, then we put the greater than sign on the left hand side, and then just the normal inequality on the right hand side. Now these two signs here will always be the same. Okay, so when you're asked to do an error interval, it's that way around. So we're going to do our 89.55 on the left hand side and 89.65 on the right hand side. Now the reason why the inequality has an equals underneath it on the left hand side is it can be 89.55 and still round to 89.6. The reason it doesn't have one on the right hand side is 89.65 would have rounded to 89.7. So if you just remember, the things in the blue circles are always that way, and the letter it asks you for, just put in the middle. If it doesn't ask you for a letter, you can just pick any letter you want. You can call it X or something. And then the lower bound is on the left hand side, and the upper bound is on the right hand side. And the lower bound's always here, and the upper bound's always here. Okay, this is a basic circle theorem question, and the only thing we need to know is which circle theorem this is. Well, it's a quadrilateral with each of the points on the circle, so it's cyclic quadrilateral, and the circle theorem says that opposite angles in a cyclic quadrilateral add up to 180 degrees. So we just do 180 minus 65, which equals, I think, 115 degrees, so it'd be 115. And the response that they need is simply opposite angles in a cyclic quadrilateral. So opposite angles in a cyclic quadrilateral, I should write the whole thing. Opposite angles in cyclic quadrilateral add to 180 degrees. In most exams, they're just looking for cyclic quadrilateral as a reason, and normally it's you'd write down it in just the first part of the question. It will say work out what x is and give reasons for your answer, and you just put in brackets cyclic quadrilateral. But it's always best to write too much than too little. So we're asked to estimate the number of plants above 18 centimeters. So I'm going to start by drawing a line up from 18, which would be here, and a line across there. So that looks about 55. Now we're looking for the number of plants above, which means going up. So if there's 100 in total and there's 55 below, you just do 100 take away 55. So that means the answer would be 45. So always just check to see whether it's above or below. If it's above, then get the total and take it away from the number you find. Now there are a couple of different methods for working this question out. What you could do is just draw a line down the middle and split it up into two right angled triangles, and then use trigonometry to find half of BC and then double it, and that's absolutely fine. I don't ever hesitate when there's a cosine rule to be used, so I'm going to do the cosine rule method, but either one will give you the right answer. So it's an isosceles triangle, so it's 6 centimeters on this side, so we know it's going to be 6 centimeters on this side. And we're given A, well that's a bit of a hint that it wants you to use cosine rule. And so I'm going to call this one little a, this one little b, and this one little c. So the cosine rule says that it's a squared equals b squared plus c squared minus 2bc cos a. And any capital letters are angles, and any lowercase are always lengths. So a squared is going to be 6 squared plus 6 squared minus 2 times 6 times 6 times cos 100. Okay, and I can just type that into my calculator. So 6 squared plus 6 squared minus 2 times 6 times 6 times cos 100 equals, and so a squared equals 84.502 blah blah blah, and I'm doing the little dashes after the number to show the examiner that I'm keeping it into my calculator. I'm not going to round it. So a is the square root of that, so I might as well just show the examiner that I'm doing that. So I'm square rooting it. So what I'm going to do is just press the square root button on the calculator and then press answer equals, so a equals 9.192 blah blah blah. So to 2 decimal places it's 9.19. Okay, so this question seems really complicated because the just sheer amount of words, but actually it's quite a simple question when you get your head around it. So the first question, we're looking at a bag or 2 bags of letters and 1 bag of numbers. And so there are 26 letters in the alphabet, so there's 26 options for this first bag. There will be 26 options for the second bag, and numbers from 0 to 9. Now we've got to be careful here because 0 is counted, so there are 10 numbers in that bag, because there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, but there's also 0, so that's 10 in total. And to get the amount of combinations, all we do is 26 times 26 times 10. And we'll have a calculator for this, so 26 times 26 times 10, which is 6,760, which seems quite a lot, but there we go. This next one is, so he wants to use 4 digits but limit the combinations, so we just got to read the question. His letter bags now contain the letters A to F, so that's A, B, C, D, E, F, which is 6. So these both will contain 6, and only contain even numbers greater than 0. Now, these are the same bags as before, so we only had the numbers from 0 to 9 before. So the even numbers that are greater than 0, so it's 2, 4, 6, 8. So there's 4 combinations. So there's 4 numbers those can be. And so find out how many different passwords if they're arranged like this. So 6 times 4 times 4 times 6. So 6 times 4 times 4 times 6, which is 576. Now, that might seem confusing that there's an extra digit to the password and yet less combinations. But if you think about it, there's significantly less letters and less numbers. So that's why it's a much lower number than part A. Okay, so this looks like quite a complicated question. The important part of this question actually is this bit here. Now this looks like it's trying to give you a little bit of help. Actually it gives you a huge amount of help. It's basically telling you that when you add them together, the common denominator will just be a quadratic. Now it might be tempting just to multiply all of this by all of this and kind of get a cubic equation, but actually the answer is saying no, don't do that. The bottom will work if you factorize it. So what we need to do is factorize the one on the right, and hopefully we will notice something about it. So we've got videos on how to factorize quadratics where a is more than 1, and it's quite a unique method, but I'm going to go through it quickly, but please use the videos for a kind of slower explanation. So what I do is I times together the first and last ones, times them together, and that gives me 48. And then I've got to find a factor pair of 48 that adds together to make the coefficient of the x. So 2 and 24 won't work, 3 and 16. So then I rewrite the 19x as 16 and 3, or 3 and 16, doesn't matter. You get the same answer eventually either way. Then I just look at these two and factorize them linearly, and I just factorize those two linearly. So 8x squared plus 16x, so I can divide out an 8x, and 3x plus 6x I can divide out a 3. And you notice that the bracket here is the same. Then you pair up the bracket that's the same with the bits on the outside, so you get 8x plus 3 and x plus 2. Cool. So I can rewrite that. Now I'm going to rewrite the question. So now it becomes 1 over 8x plus 3 x plus 2 plus 1 over x plus 2. Now you notice that actually that bracket is the same, so all I need to do is times top and bottom here by 8x plus 3. I'm squishing it a little bit, and it will have common denominator. Right, so I'll rewrite that just to make sure my working out is really clear. So the top becomes 8x plus 3, and the bottom actually is the same as the other side, which is good because now we can add the tops together. So if we add the 1 to the 8x plus 3, we get 8x plus 4, and then we've got 8x plus 3, and then x plus 2. And that's my answer. Looking at the structure of the answer, it looks very much like we're going to have to complete the square. Now, to complete the square, we need x squared minus something. Okay. Now we've got 2x squared, and so minus something x. We've got 2x squared minus 28x. So we're close to getting that, but we haven't quite got that. So what we need to do is factorize the 2 out first. So 2 brackets x squared minus 14x. And then I'm just going to add the minus 4 at the end. You could also factorize out the 4 as well, but I'm just going to leave that alone because I'll deal with that later. Now that we've got what we need to be able to complete the square, which is the x squared minus something x, we are going to complete the square. Now to complete the square, and I'm going to do this over here to show you a little bit easier. What you need to do is you need to put the x minus half of the bit here, so it's going to be 7 squared. Now that will get, if you expand that, that will be, or using FOIL, that would be x squared minus 7x plus 49. Now we need the x squared, we need the minus 7x to get the minus 14x, but we want to get rid of the plus 49 that it generates. So we need to take away 49 from it. And that's it. That's completing the square. Okay. So I'm going to replace that with what I've just found out that it is x minus 7 squared minus 49. Now, I have that minus 49 on the inside of the brackets, and I want to collect that with the minus 4 on the outside of the brackets. So I'm going to just expand the big brackets. So I'm going to times the x minus 7 squared by 2. And I'm going to times the minus 49 by 2. And so I can collect the numbers together. So looking at the question, it says it wants m. M is the thing before the brackets, so m is going to be 2. Now it says that p is a positive. Well, we know that p is minus 7, so I'm going to put minus 7 there. And q, it says, is a positive. Well, we know it's a negative, so it's going to be negative 102. This is a question about iteration, and question A is a little bit harder maybe than the exam will go, where it asks you to come up with your own iteration formula. So, in order to do this, it says that fx equals 0 for this formula. So the first step is just to get it equal to 0. Now the question's given you a hint because it says that it involves a cube root. So we know that we're going to have x cubed equals something, and then we're going to cube root both sides. So I'm going to just put my lines down. And we're going to add x and add 5 both sides. And we're just going to cube root both sides. So our iteration formula is going to be the cube root of x plus 5. Now, with the iteration formula, it's a beautifully simple idea that this formula will, as long as we just keep ploughing in what we've found for the answer before, it will get us closer and closer to the real root. Now, sometimes the roots are infinite, so we could be sitting there all day and it will get a closer and closer and closer answer. This is why the question will say, 3 decimal places or 4 decimal places. So that will tell us when to stop. So it always will give you a first one, okay, the x0, the first one to try. And all you're going to be doing is putting that 1 into this formula here. Okay, so let's try it. So cube root of 1 plus 5, and that gets me 1.81712 blah blah blah. Okay, now I need to keep that answer, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to press the cube root button, then I'm going to click inside the root, I'm going to click answer plus 5. And the calculator will remember the answer to the one we had before. Now, if you try and round them, you will get very, very different answers. And it might take you a little bit longer, or you might make a mistake. So you let the calculator do all the remembering for you. Then I press equals, and I get 1.89612, blah, blah, blah. So I'm going to do the same again. So I'm going to do the cube root button, answer plus 5, and we've got 1.9034 blah blah blah. Cube root button, answer plus 5, and we've got 1.9040 blah blah blah. Now we're looking for 3 decimal places, so the numbers we're looking for being the same are these ones here. Now, we've almost got them the same, but we're not quite there, so we need to do another one. So cube root, answer plus 5, and we've got 1.9041 blah blah blah. Now, even if you were to carry on going, the first digits, the digits I've circled with I've put a red square around, are going to remain the same. So as soon as you get two that are the same to 3 decimal places, that is your answer. So my answer is going to be 1.904. Now, obviously we haven't got it perfect, but if you carry on the iteration, you won't ever get anything different to 1.904. The only numbers that will change are beyond that. So that's why we can confidently stop now and say, yes, that's our answer. The first thing to notice with this question is that to find a distance of a velocity time graph, you've got to work out the area underneath the curve. Now, at A-level, there are much easier ways of doing this, but we at GCSE have to do this using the trapezium rule. Now, the trapezium rule goes as follows. You're going to carve that curve, or the underneath of that curve, up into trapeziums to try and estimate, and this is what it asks us to do, the area underneath it, therefore the distance. So, it says it will always give you hints about what it wants you to do. So it gives us a hint saying that it wants it between 2 and 10, but it wants it in 4 equal intervals. So if I do 2 and 10, so we can get started. Now let's have a look and see how many squares there are in between them. There's 8. So if we want 4 equal intervals, we're probably going to go up in 2s. So let's try 2s and hopefully it will work nicely. Now we haven't created trapeziums yet, so let's create trapeziums now. So we're going to create trapeziums for these 4. There we go. Okay, let's try and get the heights of these trapeziums. And I normally draw it onto the graph itself. It's a little bit easier to get my head around. So that's, I think that's 11. I think that's 6. I think the height of this one is probably, because I've drawn it badly, I think it's 3. Height of this one is 2, and the height of this one I think is 3. And the width of them is 2, so all of them is 2. Okay, so we need to remember how to work out the area of a trapezium. It's half a plus b h. Now this is quite misleading because h actually using the trapezium rule is the width of the trapezium. It's because the trapeziums are kind of on their side. So h is always going to be 2 for these. So what I would do is just number the trapeziums that I'm doing. So I'm going to do number 1. Now number 1 is going to be half 11 plus 6, because a and b are the ones on the left and right of the trapezium, times 2. And I can use my calculator for this, so it's going to be 17 divided by 2 times 2. I don't know why I'm dividing by 2 and timesing by 2. It's just going to be 17, because the half and the 2 will cancel out. So the second one is going to be half, and this time it's 6 plus 3 times 2. Well, we know the half and the 2 will cancel out, so that's just going to be 9. The third one, the third trapezium, and if you want to, you can actually just number them on the actual thing itself to show the examiner, yep, this is the one I'm trying to work out. So that's going to be half, and what is it this time? 3 plus 2 times 2, which is just going to be 5. Let's just scroll it down a little bit. So the fourth one is going to be half 2 plus 3 times 2, which is also going to be 5. So to work out the total distance, 7 plus 9 plus 5 plus 5, 17, sorry. So 17 plus 9 plus 5 plus 5. I don't know why I'm using a calculator for this as well, but it's here, so we might as well use it. So it's going to be 36. Now, commonly with this question, you're also asked whether it's an overestimate or underestimate. If you have a look at the trapezium, this bit here and this bit here, we've counted that as area, and actually there's little thin strips down here. We've counted as area that actually isn't area. So this one will be an overestimate. If your trapezium goes the other way and it doesn't quite hit the curve, then it's going to be an underestimate. Okay, so this doesn't seem like the easiest questions because there's 3 shapes going on, there's no numbers in it at all, and we're asked to find a formula. So the first place I'd start is working out, well, first of all, what are the formulas we'll need? Well, let's have a look. So we've got a hemisphere. And some of these formulas you will be given. So a hemisphere is a volume of a sphere and then halved. So instead of 4 over 3, I can just say 2 over 3, which is half of 4 over 3, pi r cubed. The cone that we've got is going to be 1/3 pi r squared h. And then the cylinder we have is the area of the circle times the height. Okay, now we need to find out what the bits are. So for the hemisphere we just need r. Well, that's quite simple because r is just going to be x. It's the radius of the hemisphere. Okay, now what's more difficult is to work out the height of the cone. Well, if the radius across to the right is x, the radius of the circle up is also going to be x. So we know the height of the cone is going to be 4x because one of those x's is used on the hemisphere. We know the radius of the cone is going to be x because it's stated at the top. So let's keep going. The radius of the cylinder is going to be 10x, and the height is just labelled as h. So that's nice and simple. Okay, now let's have a look at what this question's saying. It's saying that this thing here is going to be melted down and is going to be used to create this. So that's just saying that the volumes are going to be the same. So if I add the volume of the hemisphere to the volume of the cone, it should equal the volume of the cylinder. Okay, so we know that hemisphere plus the cone volume, and I should write volume here, show the examiner that I'm working with volumes, equals the volume of, I don't know why I wrote an S, my goodness, C for cylinder. Wow. Tell my maths teacher, right, cylinder, there we go. So hemisphere is 2/3 pi, and we said that x was the radius, so x cubed. Brilliant. So plus the cone. Now, what did we say the height of the cone was? We said the height of the cone was 4x. So it's going to be 1/3 pi x squared, because the radius is x, and is it 4x? Let's double check that. Always double check. Yeah, it is. Okay. So the cylinder, and I'm going to leave that up so I can see it, is pi, and what's the r? So pi times 10x squared, and all of that squared, because all of that is r, times the height, so times h. Okay, so this is the formula we've got to work with. I'll put my lines down. Okay, so what we got? Let's sort out the timeses first, and let's tidy this up. So that hasn't got any timeses in it. This we're timesing it by 4, so it's going to be 4/3 pi, and I'm timesing it by x, so that's going to be x cubed. This one, I'm doing the 10x squared, so I need to square the 10 and the x, so it's going to be 100. And let's do the pi next. Pi, and it's going to be x squared h. Okay. Now, if you notice on the left-hand side, these two here are the same. There's both pi x cubed. So we can just add them together. So it's going to be 2/3 plus 4/3. So that's going to be 6/3, or just 2. So it's going to be 2 pi x cubed. equals 100 pi x squared h. Brilliant. Okay. Now let's just check to see what it wants. It wants a formula of h in terms of x. So it wants h equals. Okay. So first thing I need to do, well, let's have a look. What's easy to do? Well, what's easy to do is just divide both sides by pi. Let's get rid of the pi's. So 2x cubed equals 100 x squared h. Now we want h on its own, so we're getting close. We need to divide by the x squared first to get h on its own. So I'm going to divide by x squared. So we get 2x equals 100h. So we can already see we're really close. So to get h on its own, we need to divide both sides by 100. And that's going to be 2x over 100 equals h, or h equals, and we can cancel the 2 and the 100. We can divide them both by 2. Equals x over 50. So our answer is h equals x over 50.
Well, I hope you found that video useful. If you did, please click like. If you want to see more from us, including the other 2 papers, please click subscribe. We've got loads and loads of stuff on the website on maths.com, which you can go to here, which is completely free. But if you feel you're quite far behind in the maths, or you're not happy with the grades you're getting on maths.com or other mock papers you have, you can try out our premium service, which is mathseffect.co.uk. With mathseffect.co.uk, it's a small monthly fee, and you can do an annual subscription, but if you only want to do it up until November, which makes sense, you can just pay per month. And what it does is it has the whole of the Maths GCSE as a journey, and you go through each topic, mastering it one topic at a time. A lot of the students I talk to say, I really don't know where to start. Like, I keep doing Pythagoras and trigonometry over and over again, and I don't really know what else I don't know. This is a service which just covers everything. It makes sure you master and you are an expert in every topic in maths. So it's worth checking out. Loads of people have joined already, and if you haven't joined, go to the website mathseffect.co.uk or click the link in the description. That will take you straight there and you can check it out. Otherwise, thank you very much. If you want to leave a comment down below of anything you want us to cover, because we're desperate to help anyone who's been caught up in this terrible situation, which is not ideal for anyone, but equally, like, we all understand why it's happened. But if I was having to resit or having to sit for the first time in November, I would feel exactly the same as you are probably feeling. So if you want to leave any comments down below, and we might release some videos just discussing options that you have open, or whatever it might be. Otherwise, thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next video.